Hi guys, welcome to the Incredible Hulk podcast, and this time we're talking about the season 2 story called Alice in Disco.
Alice Discoland.
Yes, Alice in Discoland, that's right. Which was written by Karen Harris and Jill Sherman, directed by Sigmund Neufeld Jr. Guest cast of note was Donna Wilkes as Alice Morrow, the main character in this. Jason Kincaid as Louis Sharp, her dance partner. Mark Alamo as Ernie, the club boss. Brian James as Al, his sidekick. And Betty Ann Reese as Joan, the AA worker. And I'm joined by Sue and Alex. How are you both?
What? Good.
Good. Okay, great.
Rawr!
Yes. Donna Wilkes was in Jaws too. I haven't seen that in years. I must try and watch that again, actually. I think the same year as this film came out. And so that's of note. I think you mentioned something, Alex, that she was in some other film or...
Yeah, she was in the Avenging Angel series, which, after the trilogy, after the middle 80s and early 90s, not only was there two other actresses in the second and third movie, but she sort of had like the, almost a triple identity going, but it was on purpose. But it's a great B movie. I mean, that's another thing to love about the Hulk, is that not only does it take the stories seriously, and they're usually well-written stories, but just like Doctor Who, you have a lot of wonderful character actors as well. Veterans of acting that they're not, they have a lot of experience.
That's true, yeah.
Like Mark Alamo, he was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and I got a chance to meet him at a 1988 or 89 Star Trek convention in Missoula, Montana. It was this really small convention. I was one of the only adults in costume. It was pretty funny. But he was really, really smiley, gregarious, generous, kind, fun to hang out with. I didn't have a really great presence of mind, so I didn't ask for an autograph or a photograph, but got to say hello to him anyway, and he was laughing and smiling, and in this one, he's so dark. I mean, he played Gul Dukat on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and he was so, you could just smash him in the face a couple times with the Hulk fist. But in this one, he was just dark and just, really a jerk anyway. So, and he played that so well. But in real life, super cool.
Yeah. That's often the case, actually. The setup kind of thing for this story is that David is working at this kind of nightclub called the Pandemonium. It's called downtown somewhere, and he's a bartender there. And they are because their business is getting so bad. That's where Mark Alamo comes into it. He's the club boss. He's going crazy because they're struggling to get people in there, and so therefore he's resorted to underhand tactics and is serving minors, alcohol in there. He could easily get shut down for that. So he's in a very difficult situation, it seems. And one of the young ladies in there, who's the guest star, as we say, Alice, is one of the kind of like their favourite dancers in there, because they do disco dancing, shows and stuff. And along with their dance partner, they're kind of like the in couple. And they're gearing up for this big competition on the Friday night there, which has got like cash prizes and stuff. And all focus should be on that. But it's not, because it turns out, of course, that Alice is not only drinking there, but she is clearly having an alcohol problem, and is an alcoholic. I think 16 or 17 years old. She's playing in this, I think.
16, and she's like, they said, well, wouldn't it be good if, what did they say? It was something like, wouldn't it be good if the underage people didn't drink? And then they said, well, at least they look like these guys don't look like they're even old enough to drive. And at that point in that time frame, the driving age was 16, pretty much across California especially, and the drinking age was 18 in the 70s.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, as I say, I'm not quite sure what state this was in. This story was set in. I'm not sure, but it could have. If it was California, of course that would have applied. It's interesting here that we get this kind of backstory to David, because we don't often see much of his past life, although it's more focused on Alice than him, really. But it appears he was Alice's guardian or godfather when she was younger, and we see a flashback to her father's funeral, and David's there, and he's talking with Alice, and it seemed that they had quite a connection back then, by quoting passages from Alice in Wonderland, which seeps into the story here as well. The mother seems to be absent for much of this. Well, all of it, actually. We only sort of hear references to her. And also David's trying to track her down as well to see what's going on.
And she's in Europe.
Yeah, that's right. So it's very difficult to get hold of her, as he finds out when he's trying to ring up and find out,
Because she's over 16 at that point, she can legally not go to school. She doesn't have to go to school.
Yeah,
but if she was under 16, the truancy laws would come into effect.
Yeah. I believe she was a bit of a runaway though as well. It wasn't. I don't think it was the first time that she kind of strayed from home. When she was younger and that. So that I think they had issues with her. Trying to keep it, grounded in some ways, I guess, back then.
Well, Frank, I mean, not only is it the issue of California and the county and all that, but the other issue is not only the latchkey kids, because the parents are so busy working to be well off, as they say, but wasn't it also, it was also bigger in the United States to have alcohol in the mouthwash and alcohol in the medicine, especially cough medicine and things like that. And even other series started covering the fact that, there wasn't a lot of supervision, especially, if you were around teenage years.
Yes, that's right. You could get access to certain things that were legal to sell, and could potentially abuse them, It's interesting here, David. After trying to track down where Alice's mum is, he visits an AA group, this local group, and speaks to the lady that works there, called Joan, who is, of course, an alcoholic herself. Because once you are an alcoholic, you're always one, even if you have been off to drink for 20 odd years. There's still that possibility that you could fall back off the wagon again. So no one is ever a fully recovered alcoholic, I don't think. The addiction is always creeping under the surface. So she's got a lot of experience of it. She started drinking very young. I think she said she was 13 or something. And So he goes there to get some advice, and she suggests calling the, am I right in saying, Alex, the Alcohol Parole Board? Is that right?
Not exactly. It's the Alcohol Control Board, and it's also the licensing in the city or county. It depends because it varies. So, I've seen different things here in Massachusetts, but they're usually very strict. And they've even reported on, prosecuting people even now if they have it at a house. If anybody's under the drinking age, they're not legal at all. There's a lot of fines, especially now. And it was also a big problem in the 80s where one of the local news stations even coined the term the designated driver because there were so many, accidents and fatalities on the road.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, I think this sort of seeps back to the club, and I think it's probably the next day or so, or next night, and a guy comes representing the board, and knows Ernie. Ernie is is Mark Alamo's character, and says, "Look, I think you need to sort of lie low here, and don't serve the miners for a while, and just let the dust settle because they're coming down on all the clubs around the district like a ton of bricks and shutting places down. And yours could be next." So, Mark is really not happy about this, but has to kind of abide with it. And so therefore, we start seeing, people coming up asking for drinks and being refused. And this is like...
And Alice is one of them.
And yeah. And a couple of people are just walking out saying, "This is not cool, man. We're going," So he's losing custom because of it. So anyway, that's kind of how it is at the moment. And David is there at the bar, and Alice is there in the corner, and she's trying to get a drink from him, and he won't do it. And she sort of says, "How do you know what I want?" and all this. And so, "I know you can't go a day without alcohol," and all this, So she kind of gets a bit shirty with him, and her partner comes in and says, "Look at you, you don't look very, you look in a bit of a mess." And she goes, "Oh, thanks."
Because she was super jonesing. I mean,
yeah.
she later on they talk about it in terms of DTs, delirium tremens, but she's like, she is just, she needs a maintenance drink at least, if not, a full-on, binge.
He says, because he hasn't got a great deal of understanding of her partner or boyfriend, whoever he is, a dance partner. He just says, like, you need to snap out of this. We've got a big dance coming up on Friday. This could do great things for us and that. And but she's not really in the right frame of mind for it. So he goes off a bit angry in that, and just grabs a woman that's standing by and starts dancing with her, probably just to pee Alice off even more, I think. But
and because he was the hottest dancer on the floor. I mean,
yeah,
he was definitely a good dancer. Yeah.
He was a bit of a John Travolta type, wasn't he?
Yeah, you could say that again.
With the suit, the clothes and everything and all that, and the music and everything. It turns out, of course, that she opens up a little bit to David at the bar and mentions about, like, her father had died and, oh, everything's groovy with my mum, here's the perfect mother and all that. So it's clearly things aren't good there. But she starts going a little bit strange and rushes out of the club, kind of delirious. And David is concerned and he tries to follow after her. But he's blocked by Brian James' character, says going to sweep that glass up and stuff. So he's delayed a bit. As it transpires later on in the evening, he comes out of the club and here's this commotion going on behind the club. And it's kind of like this boarded up building there, like it's quite dilapidated and unsafe. And her friends from the club are, you know, shouting out and stuff and saying, Alice is up there, Alice is up there. And she's up at the top of the building, standing on the edge, you see. Molly, go and call the police. I'll go in. So David goes in there to try and get to help her. But because the place is in such disrepair, you know, all the floorboards are weak and all this kind of thing, and he puts his foot through one of the steps on the staircase and hurts himself. He's cut his leg, and the tension's building, as we know. And
he gets angry, and he hulks out.
He's a bit more angry. Yeah, she's crying out at the top about, you know, Daddy, where's the white rabbit in Wonderland? And she starts hallucinating and seeing her dad at the bottom trying to catch her as she falls, and all this sort of crazy stuff's going on. And he hulks out and
Rawr!
And pulls her off the edge, as it were, and puts her to one side. He doesn't. That's about all he does really in this bit. So he runs off anyway, as the Hulk always does at the end. You know, once he's done his part stuff, he runs away. The next day, David finds Alice, who's sitting on a park bench, and she really is like cold turkey now. She's looking really, really ill, shaking, eyes very black underneath her eyes and stuff. And
he invites her to go to this group with him.
He manages to get her to go. Yeah, that's right. And she sits in a group with all these other, you know, people that are suffering with alcoholism. And Joan's there, of course, leading the group. And Joan explains that because she asks Alice, how old do you think I am? And Alice says, I don't know, about 35. And she goes, I'm 26 next week. And she looks shocked, you know, because she obviously looks a lot older than that. Not much, but, you know, older. Exclaiming that this is what alcohol can do to you, can age you, you know. So I think that kind of is a little bit of a breakthrough at that moment when she starts reflecting a bit, and eventually she does stand up or say out loud to the group, you know, my name's Alice and I'm an alcoholic, and that's a huge step forward, as you know. When they can admit they got a problem, that's the hardest bit.
It's called the first step, and that's for sure.
As a major step, yeah. So she seems to be getting things a little bit more together after sort of like offloading that. And McGee is on the scene. McGee wants to speak to Alice about the Hulk. Outside the meeting, the alcohol meeting, you'd see that guy from the board that you saw earlier on with Ernie. So he's being tipped off a bit, you know, and he's dropped on those two, you know, those going in, you know, David and that going in there. And Louis, rather unhelpfully, has a bottle of Jim Beam or something ready for Alice if or when, probably when, he's thinking, they win the contest on the Friday. So he's got a little ribbon around it in the flat, you know. And this is not really helping her at all, seeing that. And David visits her and tells her that, you know, the club, it's not the environment so much that's the problem, it's the drink, you know. You could be anywhere, it's just drink that's causing this depression and slide, you know. So anyway,
so he's, you know, like the situation gets pretty grim at the bar too. What is his name? Ernie's his name. The bar owner guy.
Yeah, Ernie. Yeah.
He's been confronted by the alcohol control board, and he's also been confronted by, you know, how he's been crooked. Like the alcohol control guy has been crooked, and he's been feeding him money. And David overhears it, and so, you know, Ernie's got like this plan And this is where, Mark's acting is really, really spot on. He lulls him into this false sense of security, and then he imprisons him. He locks him in one of the,
He's down in
the
I think
booze cages or crates or whatever. A big part of the bar that protects the booze anyway.
Yeah, it's like a storage area or something like that.
Yes,
they're in
exactly.
it's like a little basement bit. They're in like a little office, isn't it? And he's got like certain areas got the alcohol locked in it and stuff, or bottles and crates of beer or wine, or
because it's a super expensive inventory to hold on to. And anyway,
yeah,
Dave gets stuck down there because he's overheard some junk.
So you leave him down there, say, look, you're not getting out, or whatever. Of course, he's trying to get out. As you know, he has to get out, and they had him handcuffed in that.
First of all, the first thing that they do is they chain him to a chair. So he rams the chair against the wall a bunch of times, and then it's sort of, I don't know if the chair breaks or something, but he's still in the cage. Anyway, he gets out anyway.
Yeah, he steps up on these on boxes or something, doesn't he, or something, and falls into all the crates and smashes into all the drink.
Yeah,
and that causes him to hulk out. Yeah. So meanwhile, upstairs, the couple are tripping like fantastic upstairs,
mm-hmm.
And then they hear these growls.
Oh, and all this time, this wonderful couple's been dancing to the disco version of the Lonely Man theme, and it's just beautiful.
I think that must have come out as a limited edition vinyl back then.
It would have been a fat stack. That would have been super cool.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I'm sure it did come out on a record. I think there is it's probably incredibly rare now to get, but I'm sure it's it was released like that, along with the main theme, the normal main theme. I would think, A side, B side. Yeah, because that disco version, as it were, cropped up in several episodes of the series as well. So it became a bit of a favourite. They used a lot. It's like their go-to song if they wanted to sound hip. So
that's right, and it was super hip. Yep.
Super duper, yeah. So they hear these growls, and of course you know full well who that is, Sue. It's the big green guy.
Yes.
His way through the club, throws Ernie flying like a toy, and the crowd gather around him, and it's like, what the heck's this? Is he the new crowd puller or something? And
he's a big green bouncer.
Yes. And anyway, he sort of stands there and just sort of stares at Alice. The two of them, like, it becomes, and it's interesting that, like, it's just the way he passively looks at her, the Hulk. And look, he does a lot with his looks, doesn't he? Rather, because he can't talk. He's walking down the street, McGee outside, and then suddenly the Hulk just runs by him and growls at him. And then just disappears around the corner, and he hasn't got time to think. He's going, bloody hell, man, I just missed him again. It's so funny. It's like a double take, So you get little comedic moments like that, which are funny.
Now, I was trying to search on the internet, and I searched 3 different search engines. There was a lot of web traffic in 2012 about the Incredible Hulk, also in some sort of Asian site as well. But there was a Incredible Hulk original track recording. And then they did have the theme from the Incredible Hulk, the disco version.
Anyway, the Hulk does his bit, and he smashes out, and he's off again. Yeah.
Frank, sorry, I did another search. They apparently do have it on Amazon, but only 2 tracks are free. Everything else is 99 cents, including the disco version of The Lonely Man.
Oh, right.
It's on Amazon in the U.S. It's they say it's under the name Joe Harnell.
Yeah.
Harnell from 2012.
Okay, yeah, Joe Harnell was the composer of the series. Yeah, that's right. And he was the one that wrote the the Lonely Man theme and everything like that. So yeah. So the next day on this story, the club is finally closed and boarded up, and Alice is starting a new job. Interestingly, as a dance teacher this time. And so that's really encouraging to know. And Alice hands David Alice in Wonderland book as a gift, parting gift. And there's a quote mentioned, but I can't remember what it is now. Did you remember that, Alex? I think you were mentioning about the Alice quote she mentions to him.
Unfortunately, we didn't have time to see it again. There's quite a few quotes. Unfortunately, it's not listed online, so you have to watch the episode. There was the quote about if everybody minded their business, the world would go a great deal faster than it does.
Yes, yeah.
And then David said, well, you'd think, almost paraphrasing, you'd think so, but it's definitely not an advantage. And then there was another one about whether they'd see each other again, I believe it was. But
That's
for
right,
some reason, nobody's quoting from there. There was other websites where they quoted the, good thing they're not old enough to drive quote. But it's pretty, on the web, it's pretty small. The only thing they said was, in most websites, was it was a very intelligent episode, not too preachy. The Hulk didn't show up a lot. A couple of them mentioned the disco theme of The Lonely Man. And that was about it. They didn't really mention most of the quotes at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that has to do with the passage of time, that they want to concentrate on the other episodes.
So that was Alice in Discoland. That was rather groovy. So what did you think of that? To sum it up, guys, what did you think of this episode?
It really took me to Funky Town. No, it was cool. It was great to see. I watched it the first time, and I just Mark Alimo was completely unrecognizable as Ernie in my opinion. And then the second time through, I recognized him, and I went back to the beginning, and I'm like, that's what it says. It's him.
Yeah.
And that freaked me out. It was so cool. Anyway, great stuff. And the other cast was good. And of course, Lou and Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby were brilliant, of course. Really sensitive. Bill Bixby just, and his moments with Alice were just, as a kid and as a grown-up, were just precious. I mean, just so sweet and kind. Anyway.
Yeah.
Amazing acting. Anyway, that's my bit. Here's Alex.
Yeah, like I said, I would have actually liked more quotes, but of course that would have slowed down the episode even further, and they had to cover a lot of ground. And like I said, they did a pretty good job without being too heavy-handed or preachy. And even, 30, 40 years later, they agree that it was kind of mature and it wasn't heavy-handed and it wasn't, very aggressive, even though they had their points to make. But it wasn't aggressive or, asking for a heavy political, resolution. And, of course, I know a lot of people, even when the show was on originally, they didn't want a lot of Hulk anyway. So I think a lot of people enjoyed this episode because it's very mature It's it's very it's sort of serious. It has a few funny moments, but on the whole, it's very serious. And it was one of the series that did that well. That you could, and if you make a TV show very well, you can jump in an episode between serious and humorous and things like that.
So anyway, guys, that is Alice in Discoland. And I want to thank you both for joining me. Thanks very much, Alex and Sue.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And we'll, of course, be back very soon with another Incredible Hulk podcast. Until then, of course, don't Hulk out.